listeners. My name is Esther Smith from Speaker Hub. Speaker Hub is one of the world's fastest growing networks of speakers, trainers, moderators, and webinar hosts. We help connect speakers with event organizers from around the world. In this podcast series, we interview some of our VIP speakers and trainers, and they share with us their insights on how to become better communicators. And in this podcast, we're talking with Lieve Leysen, the founder of Feel Good Too. Her message is very simple. Clear communication can help us lead better, happier lives. So Lieve, can you tell us, what topics do you speak about?
I speak about a few topics. I speak about women and their qualities and possibilities. I speak about personal communication and about love.
About love?
That's added recently.
How did you add love to the repertoire of things you speak about?
Actually, love is a big ingredient for the other two. Love is actually the basis for the personal communication, in my case. My point of view, and I don't focus so much specific techniques. I focus on the love. When I start to talk with people, that it becomes clear what I mean.
And so what do you teach people about love?
I teach people to communicate in a very positive and clear way so that they can build good and strong relationships. That's the main thing. And besides that, women, that they have a lot of value and that it's really important to look at themselves and to take care of themselves and to be aware of the value that they have. Those are the most important messages.
And so when you're teaching women to do this, how do you go about training them in this?
What part are you talking about now? The women and their qualities and possibilities?
Either one, because they're both quite beautiful topics, but also a little bit vague. So when somebody comes to one of your sessions or one of your talks, what are they going to take away with it?
Well, different things. At the end, they will often have a small list with concrete information about themselves, like real qualities they have when it's about women, because most of the women, they're not aware of all the qualities they have. They are unbelievable creatures, really unbelievable. They are creative. They do so many things, and people most of the time take everything for granted. They don't realize what they do, what they have, what they get. And that's something that I try to show, that I show them. And so they get regularly, during my speech, they get insights. And usually it's combined with a workshop. So people get insights about themselves. And it makes them feel happier because they see that, oh, wow, I have done that. And yes, that's a success too. And oh, and that, yes, there are so many things that you do in life that is considered as normal, but that actually are all successes. And it's very important that every person is aware of the successes that he or she accomplishes.
So it sounds like you really teach women how to celebrate their success. So it's about recognizing what you're doing.
Among others, because I also have a group a closed group on Facebook, especially for that, to help women to celebrate their successes.
Why do you think women have a hard time with this? Or why do you think they need an extra space for it to do this?
There are so many things that play a role in that. The culture plays a role in that. In some countries, in some cultures, it's really, really strong. It has a real big influence on how women behave. It's everywhere, but in some cultures it's much more. But also in the Western cultures, there are some beliefs from hundreds and thousands of years ago that are not really have been changed. Like basics, like the man, he is responsible for the money and for the defense of the family. The woman, she is responsible for the children, for taking care of everything at home, for taking care of the man. In the past, it was I think, very black and white, but that's not the case anymore, happily. But because of these beliefs, women, I think, very often underestimate themselves and also don't realize that what they do are really, truly, often very big things. They are much more valuable than they think. And even women who work full time, there is a reason, by the way, why still most of the women very often earn less than men. It's still the case.
Why is this though?
I don't say it's because of one thing. That's of course that's not true, because there are a lot of factors that are important. But one of the most important thing is how women see themselves in the first place. Because if you don't find yourself valuable or important enough, and if you always think that another, and that's very often the case with women, I've had that too in my life, a big part of my life. If you think as a woman that another is better, always think that another is better than you, or that a man is better than you because of, doesn't matter what reasons you find, as long as you think that, you will get less. Only from the moment that you are really convinced about your own worth as a person, you can receive an equal worth from other people for yourself.
When a woman doesn't know her value, she's not going to ask for more than what she thinks she deserves. But if she knows, oh, no, I'm very good at this, I'm very insightful, and I have a lot of experience in this, then she will gain a bit more confidence and ask for what she deserves.
Yes, because that's the case. You get more, when you are aware of your value, you become more confident and you can ask what you deserve. But if you aren't, you can't. And then because I've had that one time in my life and I was getting more confident, but at that point I was not confident enough. So my boss, he in a way struck me down. He hit me down with some arguments that were ridiculous, but at that time I wasn't strong and self-confident enough to get what I wanted.
So it was quite a big learning lesson for you when that happened, and then looking back on it now?
Yes, really. But it's not easy, and I think that it doesn't only happen to women, it also happens with men. But compared women and men, I think there is much more work to do for women than for men.
And I think that goes back to the long cultural heritage of it being in this system. So it's just a little bit more work right now. Can you tell me, how did you become a speaker? How did you get involved talking about these subjects?
I just felt I had to do it. It was after an experience that I had with my ex-husband. At a certain point, we had a very bad year. My husband, it was my second husband, I discovered at a certain point that he had a relationship with somebody else and that things were not really evolving the way I wanted. I said, really, I want to have a conversation with you. I want to clear out some things. And at the end of the conversation, I had such an amazing feeling. I said, wow, it's unbelievable how I feel now. I have to let other women know that there is another way to do it. Because, I always say, and people can read that on my website that I have for this day that I have for women. It's a yearly day, the Feel Good 2 day. I've chosen that name just because I want that everybody else feels good like me. So I say, feel good too. On my website, it's written there in Dutch, I say a woman is like a barrel full of feelings that expand regularly into emotions. And when you are in a very emotional situation, like what I had, a husband who had a relationship with another woman, it's really hard to have a very calm conversation in a way that you both feel good and that you get the result that you want at the end. And that's what I succeeded in that time. And because I succeeded in that, I had that amazing feeling, and I really felt I have to spread the word to as many women as possible.
So when you say that you had this amazing feeling, can you
Yeah.
describe that in a little bit more detail? Like what was it that made it feel amazing when you were effectively able to communicate with your husband and
Well,
move forward?
the thing was that I was still a lot in love with him, and he was still in love with me. There was a deeper reason, he wanted to have a child. He could not have a child with me anymore, and he wanted a child, and with the other woman he could. So that was the main reason. But anyway, the thing was that he did not want to let me go. And just before that conversation, I decided to choose for myself. I decided to be happy. And I had realized that the only person who could change something to my situation was myself. So we had that conversation, and although my ex, he usually was someone who could react very strongly sometimes, he stayed very calm all the conversation long. He showed his love in the way that he behaved. He let me talk all the way. He told everything that he felt. It was an amazing experience. It felt so comfortable. We were talking like really, really dear friends who the only thing that we wanted was to be happy and that the other person would be happy. And that made the result that we had and the feeling that I got. And I could convince him to agree with what I suggested to him so that I would be free. Because that was a very hard thing for him to let me go. Because he didn't want to. He wanted to keep me. See? But that was such a comfortable feeling, that feeling the love, that everything we were working with love. We were not focused on all the negative stuff because many things happened. He did a lot of things behind my back, and I had a very tough year before that. It really felt very, very bad. But that moment, it was like, it was not forgotten, but it felt like if you've forgotten everything, it's more like forgiven.
You were saying that you and your husband were both on the same perspective of wanting the other person to be well and to approach the situation with love. And I think that there's a sense of equality there. But what happens when you're trying to communicate with somebody who is not sharing that perspective, that they are biting and they're angry and they're hard? How do you either bring them up to the level of wanting to communicate in a loving and helpful way, or how do you approach that situation?
Well, you have to know that my husband at first, he also didn't start it, I think, the conversation and the whole thing with thinking that he wanted me to be happy. But he realized that very soon because of the way that I talked with him. When you are together with a person who doesn't think that way, you can never change a person, and you cannot push a person into something, but because that will always have a negative effect. But what you can do is to make things clear in a very positive way and to let people discover themselves by the way that you explain things.
So what you're saying is that when you start the conversation, if you can start it in a way where you're clearly communicating, saying, this is what I want this conversation to look like and sound like, this is what I want us to get out of it, that usually the other person will calm down or at least try and open up a little bit more?
It's like you are setting certain goals for that conversation for yourself before. You have to know where you want to end. You have to know exactly how you want that the conversation goes, not how you think that it will go. No, how do you want that it goes? And then if you've done that, you can look into it and say, okay, what can I do to make it go that way? And how can I do that? It's like anything in that you want to reach, also in business. It's you have to set certain goals and then look how you can reach those goals. But it all starts with yourself. It doesn't matter with who you are in communication. In whatever position that person is in, all depends on yourself, your behavior, the way that you handle everything. It all starts with yourself, and it's you who define how it goes. How strange it may sound, but that's the case. It depends on how you behave, how you think, and how you speak. Depending on that, you will get certain reactions from the other side.
So it sounds like it's very important to know what you want going in, which is, I think sometimes we don't necessarily do this. We are reacting to a situation, or we're just kind of moving forward without having a good idea about where we want to go. So it sounds like what you're saying is one of the keys is to step back a second and take a look. Okay, what do I need out of the situation? What do I want? Where do I want to go? And then that sets a precedent for building your way there.
Yes, exactly. And then it's also important that you keep with what you decided at the beginning.
What's the hardest thing you've had to learn about communicating your messages?
The hardest thing is that you have to be your authentic self. The hardest lesson was when I didn't do that and I tried to copy others. And then you just go off. You go completely off. It's a terrible feeling.
When you say really, off, what do you mean when you say off?
Yeah, I know, and yeah, it's you lose your face in a way, and people feel that something is not as it's supposed to be. You don't get the positive effects that you have when you are your authentic self. Because when you are your authentic self, you create momentum. For a long time in my life, I had no clue. When I heard someone talking about momentum or creating momentum, I had no clue what they were talking about. So I don't know if this is an expression that you're familiar with.
Well, can you describe to us what you mean?
When you create momentum, you start like, you could say it's like starting a wave of positive energy. It has some positive effects on people around you. And the more authentic you are, the stronger that positive effect becomes. And the longer you go on the same path, in the same way, the stronger the effect will become. And the more people will talk about it. But if you are not your authentic self, you don't have that effect. You don't get momentum. If you are not authentic, you just spread a message to the group that is with you at that time, and there it stops. Or you only get negative results. If you are really your own you, your authentic self, you do it everything in your own way, and you spread a message that you really want to spread from the deep of your heart, on your own way, in your own way, then you create momentum. Then people feel touched, and you create a real group feeling also. People or everybody in the room then feels what you are talking about. Yes, you are connected. You get connected. And they keep talking about it afterwards as well.
What does it mean to not be your authentic self? What does that look
Well,
like?
if you're not your authentic self, that's what I said before, because that was my lesson, is a moment that I tried to copy other speakers.
Okay.
Because it was in the beginning and I did not really know what my authentic way was. I knew I had to be authentic, but I had no clue what my authentic way was. So you have to do it to discover it.
So what was your authentic way?
Actually, my very first time that I spoke for a public, I was really authentic, but I had no choice because I lost everything that I had prepared. I lost a couple of days before, and I had no other choice than be authentic. So it's just telling what you know, what you feel. It's especially from your feelings, but the message that you have combined with your feelings actually. And that you express in your way, the way you are. When you are, you can have days that you are really, that you know you are really yourself. You feel good, you feel comfortable, you behave the way that you are, as you are your natural you. Only you know yourself. How is your natural you? When you have a good day. When you are in that mood, and you talk in that mood, you are authentic.
How
Also,
do you capture that? Because I can definitely think about my own life when I'm like, oh, at that moment I was really happy and authentic. I was just being myself, doing my thing. But when you get back into the workplace and you're back in your office and you're very task oriented, or before you get on stage and there's maybe 5,000 people who are all looking at you, how do you recapture that feeling of being authentic?
you have to believe in yourself. That's important. You have to believe that it is good as it is, and that you are good as you are. And when you speak about something, the most important is that you can inform the other people about this so that they can reach the same happiness that you experience yourself, knowing what you are going to tell them. So you want the best for the people there, and you are convinced that it's truly something that helps the other people, the thing that you are talking about. And you are convinced that it doesn't matter what other people say or think. You know that this is the right thing to say, and that you need to say this because it can help other people. It can help the world. So you are convinced that no matter how you do it, it's how you do it. That's the way it feels good for you, and it will feel good for the people who can connect with that. And there will always be some people who cannot connect with it, but that's okay. Because, some people are ready to receive certain information, and other people are not ready to receive certain information. Those who are ready will pick it up. Those who are not ready will not pick it up, or will look into it later. But that's okay. But you feel confident because you know that it's a good thing that you are doing. And that's actually, for me, that's all that matters. Because the only thing that I want is that people around me are happy. And I will always do everything that's in my power to pass on all the knowledge that I have so that other people have the opportunity to use or to discover this knowledge and to become as happy as I feel.
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier about having an end goal and then clearly walking towards that goal. When you talk about, oh, my main aim here is to help people and to get them to a place where they feel happier and more confident.
Yeah.
Everything else falls into place because that's the direction you're going.
Yes, exactly. That's my mission. I just want to contribute to a happier world, to a happy life of as many people as possible,
Mm.
and help them by helping them discover their qualities and possibilities, and helping them with positive and crystal clear communication, because that communication is such an amazing part, the biggest part of our life. It
Mm.
has everything to do with communication in one way or another.
What's the one piece of advice you would offer our listeners and myself about being crystal clear in your communication and effectively communicating with others?
I think the most important is to follow your heart, stay loyal to it. You can do that if you focus on the essence of your message that you want to send into the world, the message that comes from deep down inside, from your heart. And of course, it's important that you also believe in yourself, that you are good as you are, and that you don't listen to what other people say, nor before nor afterwards, because only your heart and the higher mission that you have for the people around you, only those things count. And about crystal clear communication, most of the people, and I was in the same position until a couple of years ago, but most of the people are really good in saying in what they don't want. But most of the people have no idea, or most of the time don't say what they really want. And if you start to focus on that and to focus on the way that you express things, you will notice that there is a very big difference also in the words that you choose. When you are crystal clear, what you say can only be interpreted in one single way. If there is room for more than one interpretation, your message is not crystal clear.
And then how do you help people to get along to getting there? How do you get people from muddy or confusing communication to having that crystal clear, only one interpretation way of communicating?
By practice and by showing them how they can do it. Everybody has uncountable examples in his own life of how it goes when it's not crystal clear. I've had uncountable examples in my experience in my own life where I saw that people acted another way than I wanted. But at that time, at that moment, I was not aware from the fact that actually it had to do with my own communication in one way or another. And the last years, because at a certain point I started to train myself on that. And when you do that, it's amazing the effects that you get, and it feels very comfortable. So for me, it's not so hard anymore. And now I'm very much aware of what I'm saying when I talk to people, especially if I have certain goals that I want to reach. Actually, it's also a way of living. It's not something that you can say in 3 words, you do it that way. No, you need more time for it and you need practice, but it's possible for everybody. And I can recommend it to everybody because it's great.
So just to summarize, it's still this idea of knowing what you want to get out of the situation, and then not leaving room for confusion with the people around
Yes,
you. This is where I want to go, and this is why I want to do this. And once you've
yes.
figured that out, communicating falls a little bit more clearly into place.
And that counts for everything. Work, personal relationships with no matter if it's with a love or with your children, or it doesn't matter. It's for everything.
Well, you've shared some very wonderful insights with us, and I'd like to thank you for doing this podcast recording with us today.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure doing it.
And listeners, if you'd like to dive in a bit deeper into this podcast, there's a full article and transcript available on www.speakerhub.com, as well as links where you can learn a little bit more about Lieve and her experience in using great communication to improve your relationships. Until next time, This has been Esther Simple with Speaker Hub, and thanks for listening.